Hey everybody, and welcome to today's Hang with Willie. So we really upped our game here this week, and we have a brand new setup now. You see, we have the virtual keyboard up there. We got the sheet music in here that I'm going to be going through. So we've really upped our game, and I hope that you really enjoy this new look. Okay, so let's dive right in. The first thing I want to do is I want to try and start each one of these Hang with Willies with just kind of a cool chord and a cool lick. So if you can't, grab the entire lesson, at least you can grab this one quick thing. So let me show you this. So this is an A flat major 7 chord, just the root, the 5th, and the 7th down here in the left hand. And what I'm doing is I'm building these open sounding voicings in the right hand using the interval of a 4th there and a 4th there, separated by a major 2nd. Okay, so you see it, that's a perfect 4th, and they're just separate. So it's like kind of like 2 stacked 4ths on top of one another. And let me just take a second to say hello to, we got Steve, Lori, Emily, Emmett, Raul, Vladimir, we got North Carolina, Moscow, Georgia, Schenectady, China. Carl from China, how you doing? Dennis in London. I mean, we got people from all around the world. So welcome. Feel free to chat. Carrie will be on the chat as well, so she can answer any questions that you might have. All right, so anyway, this chord, these 2 stacked 4ths, and I'm building this on the 3rd of the chord. So now when I play that, I get a real nice sounding chord like that. But now I don't have to just stop there. I could build the same structure on, say, the 9th. So remember, root 5, 7 down here in the left hand, okay? In the right hand, I have 9, 5, 6, because it's a major chord, right? Okay, and then the 9th. Here I have the 3rd, the 6th, the major 7th, and the 3rd. And I can also come up to this one as well. This is kind of cool. This is the 6th, the 9th, the 3rd, and the 6th. So listen to what happens when I cycle through each of those. And I can arpeggiate them. This is also kind of cool to end on that chord. Nice ending chord. If I want to translate that into another key, well, let's go to, say, the key of F. Root 5, 7. I can also just do root 7 if it gets a little too low. You know, I could just play the root 7 there as well. Built on the 3rd. Built on the 9th. Built on the 6th. So build it on the 9, build it on the 3, build it on the 6. Okay. Now let's see if this is ready here. I want to show you guys something. This was all of the responses that we ended up getting. Okay, we ended up getting literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different responses to the survey of what it is that you want to learn. So I really thought long and hard about, okay, how do I want to structure this hang each week? And what I decided is I'm going to teach you something very specific that you could take this information and practice it for the week. Now, I have something very special for students that are members of Piano with Willie, in that you can then get on and you can grab all of this sheet music that I'm showing, and there's also jam tracks as well that you can download and play with for this particular hangout. All right, so let's get on and let's see how far we can get here with this Georgia on My Mind. All right, so the first thing is, all I'm doing is I'm taking the first 8 measures of Georgia, and we're just going to work on just being able to, like, oops, what am I doing? Just trying to work on an improvisation. All right, so let's get through this and let me show you how you can start to improvise over the song and start to build an improvisation. Now, of course, building an improvisation is a little bit more, it's very structured. So as you learn these techniques, then you can then start to loosen up a little bit, because we don't want our improvisation to be very stiff. We want it to be loose. But in order to get to that point of being loose, you have to understand each of the steps and understand each of those foundational elements. Okay, so the first thing is you want to make sure you know your chords. So what I've done here is I've written out all of my chords, and notice what I'm doing is I'm just doing a chord shell. Root 6, root 7, root 3, root 7, and then here, root 3, 7. I could have done root 3 as well if I wanted to, but here I did root 3, 7. And notice this is D minor over C. So you see that slash chord? Okay, this is over C. And then B minor 7 flat 5, root 5, 7. This is the flatted 5th, don't forget. And then root 7 for B flat, root 3 for E flat, root 7 for A minor, root 3 for D7, root 7 for G minor, root 3 for C7. And then I come up and I play root 3, 7, root 3, 7, root 3, 7, root 3, 7. Remember, you can play all of these chords as just root 7 and root 3 if you want. So the last measure 7 and 8, I could have just done A minor, D, G, C, like that. Okay. All right, so that's the first step. Know thy chords. If you don't know the chords, it's going to be virtually impossible for you to be able to improvise over a song. And when I say know thy chords, I'm also talking about, let's see here. Let's see if I can grab this jam track quick. I'm not sure if this is going to come through or not, but let's try. I just have this simple little jam track here. I'm just going to try playing this. And if you can, memorize them, right? So make sure you don't have to look at those chords. All right, now, the voice leading for these chords down here is not great. A lot of times you'd want to do that root 7 to root 3, root 7 to root 3, because it's a smoother voice leading, okay? I'm doing this here just so you can see the different patterns, like the different ways of creating the voicing for that chord, okay? So you don't have to do that root 3, 7 if you don't want to, okay? All right, so hopefully you're able to hear that jam track. Like I said, for members, you're going to be able to download the sheet music and the jam track, so you'll have that available to you for practice. Now, that's the first step, knowing thy chords. Next step, we want to create chord shell lines. All right, now this is where the rubber meets the road. Okay. All right, so it's a little bit difficult for you to see, so I'm going to blow this up a little bit for you here. Okay, so take a look at what I'm doing here. So in this first measure, let's just deal with the first measure, the F6 to the B flat 7. What I'm doing now is I am playing my guide tones, okay? And I'm creating, oh, you know what? I just noticed that should have said guide tone lines, okay, rather than chord shell lines. All right, we will fix that in the music. So here, I'm playing the guide tones. And remember, the guide tones of the chord are the 3rd and the 7th of the chord, or in this case, since it's a 6th chord, it's the 3rd and the 6th. When you have a flatted fifth chord or any type of alteration to the fifth, that also becomes a guide tone as well. Basically, a guide tone are the notes that you need to really get the sound of that chord, okay? All right, so here I go from my third up to my sixth. Now bear in mind, this, let's see here. This, when I say 3, that is not meaning my third finger. Just like when I say 6 there, that doesn't mean my 6th finger, okay? Those are telling you what the chord tones are. That's why I put the number off to the side. So it's the 3rd, 6th, 7th, 3. And I can play it up here. And so now the first thing is just being able to play those. And you should be able to pick up any lead sheet and be able to just play your simple chord shell on the left hand and play those guide tone lines in the right hand, nice and steady. Put your metronome on. Now here I went up to the 6th and then I went down to the 3rd. You don't have to start on the 3rd and the 6th. You could play whichever pattern you want. The idea though is you're playing one of these 2 notes and then you go to the other one. Now if you have one chord per measure, then you go. Notice how I just repeated it. 6th, 3rd, 6th, 3rd. Okay, so 2, ready. Actually, I'm going to bring this tempo up just a little bit. So here we go. Okay, or I could do this one. So get very comfortable playing those guide tone lines. You see what I've done is I've written out the guide tone line for the entire exercise here, for the entire 8 measures. Let's see if I can fit it all in there, all right? Might be a little bit small, but we will. So let me just play what this sounds like for you. So. Notice what I did here, all right? There's the 7th of B flat going to the 3rd of E flat. It's just all I had time for was 1, all right? For one of the guide tones because the chord is 1 beat per measure. Then, oops. I'm having trouble seeing that. Okay. All right, so there's my guide tones. That's relatively simple still, all right? So now let's move on. Let's get on down to... Now, let's start to fill in between these shells, right? This is where it really starts to be cool. And we get some really cool stuff with this. Let me do this. All right, there we go. Okay, fill in between the shells. So the very first one we have is this first measure, just the F6 going to the B flat 7 again. All right, and let's just look at what's going on here. So you can see that, let me bring in this. That's what I need. Okay, so you can see that, what do we have here again? We have the 3rd, right? That's the 3rd. Then we go up to the 6th, but now we're coming down chord tones, right? The 5th to the 3rd. Then here's the 7th, and now you see that I'm just walking on down, but notice again, I'm still getting those guide tones in there. So here's the 3rd and the 6th, and the 3rd again for F6. Here's the 7th and the 3rd for B flat. I'm just filling in notes in between. So I have... I'm going up to the A7 there, right, with the left hand. And so again, 3rd, got my 3rd to my 6th, then coming down chord tones. Did I have to choose the C? Could I have done something else? Well, sure, I could have done. So I could have done third up to sixth. Again, this is all in that F6 chord. Third up to sixth. And I could have repeated that again if I wanted. And then go to the B flat 7. Right? So it's really dependent on what my ears are hearing, right? And what it is that, that I'm looking for. I could have also brought in some more chromaticism. You know, I could have gone to the B flat there if I wanted to. See how I went down to the sixth there, then up to the third, then to the ninth, and then back up to the third. So I could play around with that. But what I'm looking for is get those guide tones in there and then fill in other notes of the chord or other notes of the scale. Now, if you ever need to know what note from a scale is going to work, usually a whole step above any chord tone is going to work. So that would be a G, a B, right? A D, or F sharp, no. Okay, so, or an E. So any of those would work. So I could have done that, gone to the B natural, and then hit B flat right there. Okay? But again, those guide tones, when you hit a guide tone, what it's going to do is it's going to really give you a very solid improvisational line. It's going to make it so that the line is easy to be heard even without any chords. And what I mean by that is you're able to hear the chord changes in the left hand without ever playing the chord change. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So let me go ahead through and play this. Okay. So I have. You hear that nice weaving going on? And then also, check this out. Let's see if I can kind of draw this for you here. So you see this weaving happening here? All right, then it goes up, comes down, right? And then it straightens out, all right? But you see that weaving pattern happening. So I'm not going just in one direction. It's not like I'm doing something like this. You know, I'm not just keeping going in one direction, either up or down. I'm going up and then down, up and down. This, again, is where those guide tones come in handy because now you see right? So you see how you can like move and have a nice line and you start to fill in those notes in between. All right, let's take a look at what I did here. Now on this one, I did, that's the third. Right, so now here, just coming right on down the chord tones of A minor. Now, you might think, well, wait a second, I really don't need this kind of stuff because I'm not interested in jazz. I want to play like more like bluesy stuff. Well, guess what? Can you hear how I'm taking the same pattern, right? And I'm just now applying it to like a more bluesy style. So don't get turned off thinking, oh, wait a second, I'm not into jazz. No, don't think of this as jazz. Think of this more in terms of like creating a improvisational vocabulary. All right, so anyway, third, chord, tone, and then I go to the third of the D7 and then the seventh. Now listen to how like, and I didn't ask you the question, but could you hear how when I was just playing the line in the right hand, you could still hear the harmony weaving underneath? Now listen to what happens when I put those guide tones, the shells in the left hand in. I mean, you can really hear that harmony. And again, notice what I did here is I just created a pattern. Boom, ba, triplet D, ba, triplet D, ba. I just took the same pattern, moved it down a step, okay? Because it's the same thing is going on here. I have a 2-5, right? Going to another 2-5. And I could have done the same pattern here as well, but you know, doing this 4 times would have sounded a little redundant. Like, listen to what happened. Kind of like, why do the same thing twice? So instead, over here, this is another key thing that I did. This, starting on an upbeat. Okay, so rather than starting this C on the downbeat, start it on the upbeat. So, ba, dee. You hear that nice weaving? The 3rd, 5th, 7th, right? Down to the guide tone, the 3rd of D7, another chord tone. Here's my other guide tone. Now I'm doing a half step, going down to the guide tone B flat on the G minor. Here's 3-7, and then now I do this double chromatic, going up to the 3rd of the C. Okay. All right, so now this is what I want to show you. This is where it really gets cool. This is step 4. Step 4 is where we can start to use our tensions and upper structures. So notice what I'm doing here. Let me move that up. So I have, and here I'm just going to do root 7, root 3. Right, isn't that cool, that sound? Let me explain what I'm doing here. So again, it's the same line. This first part is all the same line, right? So this is the same as before. But this is different in here. Let's talk about what's going on there. So I have, let's just look at that for a second. What do we notice that is? What kind of triad? You might think, wait a second, that's not a triad. There's 4 notes in there, Willie. Yeah, but these 2 are double. So you can just get rid of one of those, and what are you left with? What kind of triad? It's an E major triad. All right, so an E major triad, it's a dominant 7th chord, right? Dominant 7th chord, and an E major triad on top. So that means that I can go up a whole step on any dominant chord. So I'm in D7, go up a whole step, right, and create a major triad. And that's a real nice sound. That's what we call an upper structured triad. I cover that all in the piano chords lessons. Okay, so what are the notes here? My 9th, my sharp 11, my 13. A lot of great tensions for a dominant 7th chord. I suggest you really get familiar with this upper structured triad built on the 9th. I always think building from the bottom note up rather than coming top note down. All right, so here. Now, why did I go down to the B? I could have also gone to the C, right? That. Could have done that as well. But the B is that half step that then leads me into the to the 3rd of the G minor. And I do the same pattern here on the C. Let me fix my virtual keyboard here. So we're okay. And so and then again, now check out the A minor. I'm just going to use my chord, my root 7, root 3 down here rather than jumping around on these chords. That's all the same, but then check this out. So here, what I did was I used chromaticism. So I'm starting on the 3rd, and I'm just moving up to get to the 3rd of the G minor. Now check this out. On the G minor, I'm coming down in 4ths. This gives me an open sound. And then look at what I did on the C7. Again, I did kind of like that upper structure triad there, built on the ninth, but I changed it and I went to the B flat. Why did I go to the B flat? Well, if you go back and you look at the very first note that I'm going to have to play, it is right there. Okay, I'm going to have to play that A natural. So I need to get back to the A natural in my line. So this is why, because that's my half step, and then I can go, and then I can move back into the, repeat and go back into the improvisation. All right, so again, this advanced stuff from measure 5. All right, so now what to practice? Well, practice your shells. So pick any standard, right? Whatever standard you want, just take 8 measures for right now, right? Even if you think, I got this, I could do the whole thing. What I suggest is just start with 8 measures. We got plenty of standards on the Piano with Willie's site, so you can download any of the sheet music. If you're a member, you can get started with one of those, any of those lead sheets. Take 8 measures. Just start by getting your chord shells in the left hand. Make sure you could do that, right? Once you could do that, now just create simple guide tone lines in the right hand. So again, on this song, all right, so make sure make sure you can go through your guide tone lines. If you hit a root by accident or another, or the 5th of the chord, don't fret, all right? Do your best to try and hit the 3rd and the 7th, though. Remember, again, on that B minor 7 flat 5, you could throw in the flatted 5th as a guide tone. All right, once you could do that, now start to weave in between and create an 8th note line, just like I did here, all right? So, try and get that consistent 8th note line, weaving all the way through, right, and starting to connect. So you notice that I could go from guide tone to guide tone right away, or in a situation like this, hit the guide tone, do some notes in between, and then hit the other guide tone, right? So there's no one hard, fast rule to apply to this. Basically, what you're looking for is use your guide tones, start to fill in the notes in between those guide tones, all right? Once you could do that, then now you can start to bring in some of those upper structure triads and chord tones. So here you see that I'm utilizing my chord tones again, right? So chord tones in there, but then I bring in that upper structure triad. That upper structure triad again, pick any dominant chord. Let's take F7. So one way of practicing this is go through all 12. I would follow the circle of 4. So go around C, and then F, then B flat, then E flat, A flat, D flat, B flat. All right, and then just keep going round and round and round the circle of 4ths. You can also do this. This is another good way of doing it. So C. So notice how I changed the right hand. This is kind of like, this is a major triad in 2nd inversion, I'm thinking. And then here, I'm thinking this is root position. Remember, I'm just doubling that note up here, so I don't get thrown off by that. And then 2nd inversion C, root position F, and remember, I'm thinking F triad. It's an E flat chord down there. Right? That may be a little bit advanced for you. If that's too advanced, then you can just follow the steps that I laid out earlier on in this Hangout, okay? So, all right, so from this point now, if you're a member, this video is going to be online today, and you'll be able to download all of the sheet music and the jam tracks and whatnot. Actually, there's only one jam track for this. But then you could go through this jam track, and you can just keep playing. And what's nice about playing with the jam track is you can then just focus on the right hand. So again, listen to what happens. Like if I'm playing with a bass player and I play this, right hand line, no chords in the left hand. I'm just going to focus on my right hand. So I can just practice that right hand, keep going round and round and round and round with that right hand. Now, what you'll notice is that a lot of these little patterns will start to creep into your own playing. Right? You can start to take that little pattern from like right here, this, or you, the pattern I'm showing is this one. So you might take that, or you might even take this pattern down here. Right? So any one of these things you can extract as a lick. So take a look at this one. This would be a good lick. So it's starting on the third, going down to the seventh. And then there's a double chromatic to the third of the next chord. So if I'm going to do this F minor to B flat, remember if you're thinking, why is that F minor? There's no third in there. I'm just playing a shell. Okay, so root 7 to root 3. So so we could take that, and then the other thing is, notice this. That top note is the same as the ending note. So the first note and the last note are the same. So, what am I doing here? Let's do it on F. Okay. And when I go to E flat, third. If I'm going to do A flat, to D flat 7. Okay. All right, so I could practice that lick. I could extract a lick out of this musical example, and I could try playing that lick in all 12 keys following the circle of fourths. Okay? All right, so that's it for me today. We would love to get your comments. How do you like the new setup? Did it work for you? You can leave your comments right on the chat area before we end. I know a lot of people have had questions, musical questions. When I'm doing the hang like this, it's difficult for me to be able to answer everybody's questions, so I'm keeping it very focused. I will do some hangouts that are going to be a little bit more open-ended, and I'll just answer questions. It won't be like these real structured kind of lessons, all right? So what I will do is I'll let you know when that's going to happen. I'll let you know in the email or whatnot. Make sure you're checking email from us, Willie Mayette at jazzedge.com. If you haven't whitelisted or dragged our email over to your inbox, your primary tab on Gmail, make sure that you do that. Otherwise, you will miss out on these trainings, okay? And I will see you in next week's training session. Remember, we're also doing this piano practice bundle. You should have seen a link for that. So check out that piano practice bundle. It is going to be ending soon, that special pricing. And what's really cool about that is you get that success map that you can download right away. Just details right step by step by step exactly what it is that you should be practicing to like really get your technique up to speed this fall. Okay, so thanks again, guys, and I will see you next week.